chapter 5, breakdown, which chapter is entitled The Life Diet. And this chapter is entitled The Life Diet because it is, along with the previous chapters, where we've learned about how to regulate our devotional conscience and our devotional conversation. There's an aspect to this term, life, that the Bible holds higher than what is naturally thought to be. We've heard if a man does not hate his own mother, his own father, his own brother, his own sister, and his own self, if he does not hate his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Which is interesting because there is an acceptance within the Bible for suicide. Suicide is acceptable. And suicide is not only acceptable, it's expected. You better commit suicide. And if not, there's a consequence of you losing yourself and your mind to what you should not. That's why that other quote, whosoever will find his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life will keep it. These are philosophies regarding the appointment, not for our natural human being, but for our devotional conversation. You think back to the story of Samson. Samson is a story about suicide. Samson is a story about suicide. Suicide to apply a sort of beauty to the living God's character. If Samson had not committed suicide, a very great injustice would have been committed against the living God's character. And again, the living God's chief apostle accepted crucifixion, committing suicide. Not as I will, but as thou wilt. That is suicide. A mission for suicide. And so the Bible, being a book that's not natural, and a philosophy that is not natural, its terms and the use of its words are not what we in this Western world would think. The life is not a literal, physical, natural life. One's life is one's attitude, one's spirit, one's constitution within their devotional conversation. The life is how the devotional conversation is regulated. It has nothing to do with what is physical. These previous 4 chapters have dealt with where our devotional conversation's diet should be, and what should be refrained from, what should be brought in, what should be abstained from, and what we should actually cultivate and develop better habits of getting accustomed to doing. And this chapter, this 5th chapter, is introducing the concept of wisdom to the reader. We've gone through the chapters of what isn't right. We've gone through the chapters of the negativity. We've gone through the chapters of what to withdraw from and what to practice withdrawing from. But there hasn't yet been something to latch onto that's, at least I can say, has been positive. In a sense of, if I'm supposed to stop doing this, then what am I supposed to start doing? These previous chapters have left the reader, have left the careful reader thinking about, if this is what I'm supposed to let go of, what am I supposed to hold on to? Which is fair. Because it seems as though there's nothing that should be held on to. It seems as though there's just supposed to be a withdrawal from pretty much everything, which is, if you can think back to the ancient Israel and the routine that Moses would have that congregation abide by, is they're ceasing from what is physical. But this is a little bit different. It's not simply just about ceasing from what is physical, because even though Moses let them know that what is physical should not only be abstained from, you need to destroy it and burn it along with those people that honor them. At this point in time, the action is towards our own self inwardly. We are that foreign camp that we are supposed to go into and burn to the ground. And to refrain from the former idols and subjects and theories and routines that were honored, to never do them again. This is where that life diet, comes into play. Because the goal we've learned from the previous chapters of the definition of meat, we've learned that meat is not meat. We've learned that labor is not labor. We've learned that life is not life. We've heard these previous chapters tell us what meat is to us and should be considered as, and what to refrain from concerning meat. And we've also heard of the labor. We've heard of the labor that we're supposed to refrain from and to re-educate ourselves out of. But now the life diet. The life diet, the diet for the devotional conversation, begins to come into play into this 5th chapter. And the key that this chapter really gets into is it introduces the subject of wisdom. A personal knowing, not simply of who we are and who we are not devotionally, it's not the only thing that matters. It's beneficial, but there needs to be more. There needs to be a weight. There needs to be a balancing. There needs to be a pruning to get us to that point. And that pruning is a specific wisdom within the Bible's philosophy that this chapter nudges on. Analyzing the words within the Bible and putting them into practice. Exercising them, dissecting them, and going over them, matching verse to verse, learning word to word. A certain diet is picked up, and a certain state of mind is developed for us to reference when we're living our natural life. And this chapter brings in the thought of a wisdom, letting us know that when wisdom is entered into the soul, it is for the purpose of knowledge and for healing, not simply to aid us in correction or in reformation, but in resurrection, in regeneration. And the concept of living after one, the flesh, or living after the mind, is brought up. And these previous chapters introduced us to this concept of flesh. Flesh isn't actually flesh. Flesh is actually the motor behind the devotional conversation. One's flesh is one's devotional conversation. John 3 and verse 6, that which is of the flesh is flesh, that which is of the spirit is spirit. Spirit in the Bible translates to mind. Flesh in the Bible does not translate to literal human flesh. Flesh in the Bible translates to devotional conversation. So John 3 and verse 6 is bringing out a principle that there is a way to carry our devotional conversation by 1, the spirit of our mind, or by 2, the utterance given through our body. A bodily service. A bodily service versus a service that is from within the mind. Bodily service has to do with routine. Bodily service has to do with the assumption that what is done for the benefit of karma. That which is the spirit is spirit. What is done through the mind is done not for the purpose of karma, it's done for the purpose of love. What is done through the mind is done for the purpose of love. The only benefit when acting through the mind is none. There is liberation. There is freedom. I'm doing not because I have to. I'm doing not because I'm told to do. I'm doing because this has become a part of my DNA and a part of my devotional epigenetics. It is just now me, the fulfillment of the new covenant promise is and has come to be. I will write my law in their heart and in their mind, and I will be their God and they will be my people. Can't say that much when it's coming from the flesh, or when the devotional conversation is the one that's motivating the person to be the best that they can be religiously. One can either be religious or one can either be, in a sense, devotional. While one is working through the physical, natural senses, the other is working through the sense of the mind, the sense of acquiring understanding. That's the life diet. The more that we put into practice the words that are within the Bible, the more that we put into practice the failures, the crying, the seasons of understanding, the joys of those times of clicking and ahas, and that's what that means, and wow, I've experienced that, and that's so true. That's where the motivation comes in to continually be consistent in what the Bible is saying. This life diet is a specific wisdom that no one can teach anyone unless their mind is set in accomplishing, learning of, and proving the words that are within the Bible. So literally we are, with our devotional conversations, we are becoming an entirely new human being through the experience of these words. That's the point. The point is creation. The living God is a creator. We have to, as Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 4, honor the living God as creator. What does that mean? Think about creator. Does the creator give a routine? Is creation in routine? Is creation in something fixed? Is there love in routine? Can you find love in routine? Some of us would answer yes. But others of us that have a greater experience with failed love and with having no knowledge of love would answer a bit different. To honor the living God as creator is to honor your devotional thoughts and feelings as not your own, because they're not. If we have a mind to look in the Bible, it is not because of anything in us. If we have a mind to think about anything that is beyond natural conception, it is not anything in us that is doing the work. There is something greater in us connecting to something greater. Our Creator is trying to call us home. And while this world offers many routes of home, well, those homes are scattered. There's only one home. And through strictness, tough word, through strictness of the devotional conversation, maybe discipline makes it a little bit lighter. Through disciplining the conversation of our heart and mind in dedication to the living God's character, devotional character, a diet of how to maintain ourselves personally and devotionally is to awaken. The life diet is, this chapter introduces a specific wisdom hidden within the words of the Bible, that the more that they are practiced, the more that they are put into play, the greater we will become written, as Paul says, an epistle written within. And we need this life diet because this is what maintains our devotional character for our human being. Despite what we may see outside, nothing is physical. Despite what we may see when we look in the mirror, we don't look like, we are not what we see. Within, we are an essence. There is an essence that we are created with, that is housed within this vessel called a body. The marriage of that essence to the mind that is naturally given to this body, that marriage is what will make our life beyond worth living. One is not to guide the other. The mind within the body is not supposed to guide the mind within. The essence within is not supposed to guide the mind within the body. Their marriage is what allows us to be innovative. Their marriage is what allows us to enjoy the life that is. Creative achievement. Creative achievement makes life worth living. And different branches of creative achievement exist. That's for us to find out. We're not everybody. We are our own person. Creative achievement is not going to be the same to you as it is to me, but the same underlying foundational principles apply. Creative achievement. That's one thing that makes life worth living, and that's something that the philosophy within the Bible would have us discover for the benefit of our human being. Discipline. Justness to our mind and to our vision and to our ears. And to our inward character. Applying to the wisdom within the Bible patiently, daily, and consistently. Not every day our face in a book, but every day our mind embracing the words within it through our living experience. A diet will surface that will connect us to the intention of the living God for us. This is the meat that does not perish. This is the experience that keeps on giving and that keeps on nourishing. For knowing who we are and who we are not. That diet for the life of our devotional conversations health is the link igniting our human being, which, went into it as difficult, although it may be difficult, and as difficult as it may be, it's what makes being alive. The challenge to be is the reason why our heart is beating. And that's what this chapter nudges at and points toward before getting into the 6th chapter.